empowering your team to bring you problems, empowering your team to bring you solutions to those problems, and to be humble enough to understand where your weaknesses and strengths are to bring in people that have expertise. You're going to find new opportunities to continue to expand the business.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen AI Case Study Series. In this series today, we have on Kevin Watson, who is the founder, president, and CEO of Pinnacle IP Solutions, a company that's known for providing comprehensive communication and IT services. Kevin has a strong background in sales and customer service, emphasizing a commitment to exceptional user experiences and efficient business communications. His professional history highlights a blend of strategic leadership and hands-on customer interaction crucial for fostering long-term business relationships, which is why we're excited to have him on today's program. Kevin, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So to kind of get things started here, I'd love to get it from you, a bit of a background, Cole's Notes version of who you are, where you came from, and how you ended up becoming the founder, president, and CEO of Pinnacle IP Solutions.
I started my career in IT and technology a number of years ago. I actually started with Rogers, worked in that organization for about 10 years. And I was actually recruited to help build a company called Delphi Solutions. And Delphi at the time, as deregulation had occurred and people were able to sell business phone systems to businesses outside of the government or telcos, Delphi was on the leading edge of that. And we did, a really good job building out a customer base. At the time when I was at Rogers, the management team that was in Canada was looking to acquire another partner or another company into the fold. And the US counterpart said, we're a seller, not a buyer in Canada. They worked with a venture cap company, which was Working Ventures, and they participated in helping buy the Canadian division. At that time, they one of the criteria was they wanted to bring in a couple of people. I was one of the guys that they ended up bringing in. And we ended up taking that company from 18 to about 169 million in revenue, coast to coast in Canada with Canadian focus. Again, it was telecommunications that we focused on. And in particular, our partnership at that time was Mitel. Later, I created a couple strategic partnerships, one with Rogers, one with Sprint, one with MTS Allstream. MTS Allstream ended up buying the company a couple of years later. I stayed there for 5 years. And that was about the time that people were really kind of jumping into the cloud services on the voice side. So hosted voice over IP and hosted business phone systems. I had saw sort of the upside of what that would look like. And I had saw firsthand some of the downside of where it fell short. And so I had a 2-year or 18-month non-compete. And I ended up doing consulting and services for a couple of partners that I wanted to kind of continue to work with when we ended up building out Pinnacle. And I also worked for a couple of companies that I wanted to learn a little bit more information from. So in the Cisco, Mitel, ShoreTel world, I was able to work with some of their franchises or some of their dealers. And then on the carrier side, I was able to work a couple of the key players. And then on the hosted side, a couple of key voice players. And one of the things that was really interesting to me at the time was the concept and principle of migrating things to the cloud made a lot of sense. And yet, in order for that to be a predictable and repeatable experience for the end user, you needed to own and manage the network. And nobody had an appetite to do so. So as we were building out Pinnacle, we wanted to be a unified communication player. And we realized the first thing we had to do was actually build out a managed services strategy on the network side. And that ended up being a real strategic positioning for us, because where others failed, we were able to be successful. We created one of the first hybrid solutions in the marketplace, leveraging a combination of hosted and the efficiencies related to aggregation. And we're also able to have local controllers in place so that we had no single point of failure from end to end in the network. So whether it be on the voice side, the voice device side, or whether it be the network side into the cloud, we created really a bulletproof strategy that others had struggled with. And once we sort of built out that methodology and strategy, we knew we had to partner with the right companies And the first thing we needed to do was find someone that had the ability to provide to us a technology that would allow us to not only build a reliable, resilient network, but also be able to start to leverage tools and stuff that were in place, which today are considered IoT, for monitoring, managing the network, leveraging different things like load balancing, traffic shaping, and being able to use alerts and monitors to be able to see certain thresholds when they weren't met, to be able to automatically fail over to an alternate strategy, again, to give us the highest uptime with the goal of having a predictable, repeatable end user experience. And so Pinnacle started in that methodology. Voice was kind of the cornerstone. We ended up building out not only on the voice side, but on voice storage and security. We ended up building out an end-to-end IT strategy. All of what we do is in the enterprise versus consumer space. So we knew what we needed to have in place. We knew the appetite for being able to deliver that model. The only ways to do that at the time were very expensive and cost prohibitive. So while large enterprises could foot the bill, it was still very inefficient and expensive. And small to medium businesses just didn't have the capital to be able to do it or the return. And so what we built and put in place was the ability to do that. We then leveraged not only the managed network and the applications and the support, we started to work in specific vertical markets. And as we started to work into the small to medium business enterprise, while we could go and put in fiber and DSL and other reliable internets, we found that the ability to deliver that network and have a failover in that network for customers that were smaller in size was cost prohibitive. And we were fortunate at the time, we actually had a couple of large customers in Europe. And they did a lot of things related to 3G and 4G bonding. And we were able to leverage that methodology in Canada. So we started to work with a lot of the cellular carriers, and where we would have an internet in place. If it was a large customer, we would have like for like on alternate carriers. Where they didn't, we would have diversification and we would use cellular LTE for the failover. And again, that gave us the ability to have that predictable, repeatable methodology and user experience. But it also gave us a lot of flexibility and resiliency. And because of the way that we bought services, that aggregation allowed us to do it at a really good price. That ended up leading to us dealing with and being brought into the retail and hospitality space, or food and beverage space, where people heavily relied on the internet for different services like, I'll call it point of sale, debit and credit, or payment processing, things like your digital menu boards, now kiosks and other technologies, which really could only work with a rock solid network. And frankly, at the cost or price point that those businesses were at, it was very tough to deliver, but we were able to fill a niche. And today we've expanded that part of our business considerably. And today, most of the major brands that you could probably name in Canada and the United States, we either deal with the master franchisees, the franchisee in general, or we deal with brand consolidators, of which you could probably name a few, but they might have 5 to 10 brands under them. And today, that's a lot of where our growth has come from.
So I'm very fond of this idea that luck is when preparation and hard work meet. And it seems to me like you were in a very unique position as you kind of evolved in your career path to see problems in the industry and then look for ways to implement solutions that made sense to that group of people and really turn that into something that is important now, almost the foundation of the way that we do business.
And it's funny too, like when I think back on my career when I was younger, I had moved to Calgary to play junior hockey, and I ended up going to high school and university in Calgary. And at one point in time, I was playing junior hockey, going to university, and selling cars. And so when I started my career, it was in pure sales. Later on, I was in sales and marketing. After I took the next step and I got into sort of general management roles, I was also expected or needed to learn the operational side of things as well as the financial side of things. And having that complete 360-degree view of the business requirements, I think, did provide me with a unique opportunity in order to identify opportunities or gaps in the marketplace and be able to adjust and pivot. And in the 14 years that we've been in business, almost 15 years, there's been a number of different events that have occurred, mostly have been customer driven, that have taken us into new arenas. And, when we had talked earlier on about things like IoT, IoT is a big part of that strategy, right? For us to be, the attrition of our base of customers is less than 2%. And the reason for that, or what I attribute that to, it's the fact that we're very proactive, not reactive, and we can only be proactive by using and leveraging tools. So IoT at its fundamental basis, when it originally came out or was being used, for our intents and purposes, it was really with Cisco Meraki and being able to have, I'll call it a managed network or a firewall, again, that would leverage a number of different things that were in the network to identify issues and problems early on. Later on, it was to leverage that same sort of backbone to have automatic failover. So if you remember or recall when Rogers had their big outage a couple of years ago, we had something like 600 customers that were on the Rogers network. Well, out of those 600 customers, only 3 were negatively affected by the outage. And that's because we had diverse resiliency that automatically failed over. And on those 3 sites, it just happened to be that those 3 sites had an alternate problem that didn't allow us immediately to rectify that situation, but we were able to fix it right away. And so I think our biggest challenge, to be honest with you, is that because we do a good job and we utilize tools and resources like IoT, our customers don't experience the problems that they previously experienced or might experience if they didn't have those things in place. So we're constantly trying to find ways to be able to showcase the value of what we deliver. And that's another area that I think we've invested heavily in. We invest a lot in tools and resources to make us more effective and more efficient. But equal to that, we also invest in tools so that we can showcase to our customers the services that we deliver, provide reporting and analytics, utilize those reporting and analytics to show and teach where issues are occurring. If the issues are user related, we can basically leverage that to create end user training. If the users are technology related, we can adjust and pivot to be able to help adjust that. If the issues are related to a common problem, which might be a third-party application, again, we can quickly identify that across customers or across a group of customers to be able to then work on solutions to be able to fix things and address with new technologies to make things better. And so that's one of the reasons why, when I said that we started off and we were a managed network company, we started with voice storage and security. Security had become a big part of what we did because one of the weaknesses of IoT is security, right? And it's the ability to be able to secure those devices that are on a network, isolate those devices so that there is any breach that you can control and predict what that looks like, and also isolate anything so that it protects the remaining technology and or core services that are in place. And so again, we're able to bundle that in a service offering at a similar price point with a lot more advantage to it.
So in terms of the relationships that you are managing with these customers, it seems like there's a very hands-on approach to things.
Absolutely. To be honest with you, when we look and identify, where we've invested in, we've got a really good ticketing system. And that ticketing system integrates with a lot of different things that we do, from sales to orders, to project management, to installation guides and checklists, having a repository of information for our technicians so they can quickly grab and access information to resolve problems quicker. And then further, to be able to leverage all that with, I'll call it a gauge that allows us to create customized reporting for our customers. So it used to be that, we would schedule calls on a monthly or quarterly basis to say, hey, how are we doing, right? When we look at the tickets, everything looks good. And then you might get some grumbling over, specific issues that might not have been properly communicated or identified. But when we're sending information to them on a weekly basis with not only the reporting, but the analytics, that guesswork goes away. But it also starts to create dialogue where we're becoming a strategic partner with our customers as opposed to just a vendor. The downside of when we sold, I call it iron, right? When we sold phones and phone systems only, we were involved in a one-time event where you would make margin. If you could leverage and create service contracts, you could create monthly recurring revenue, but you really weren't a significant piece of the equation for the customer. As we were able to move, and as we created Pinnacle, and we were able to move to become a managed service provider, with most of our revenue being driven from monthly recurring revenue. As the customer is paying that bill on a monthly basis, every time they sign a check, they're thinking, oh, these guys are here. But now all of a sudden, when we're sending out information and we're able to use that strategically to help them improve the way that they interact with their customers and how their end user experience is, now we become a partner. And we start to have discussions with our customers about new technology, about what they're doing, about what's efficient, what's inefficient. And we use a lot of IoT, like I said, on the network side to manage what we do, but we also use it on the computer side to see how devices are performing. So if someone's got a computer, a laptop, or a server, what percentage of the RAM and memory are being used? And, where someone would say, oh, the network's no good. Well, actually, the network's really good. I mean, it's basically 9 out of 10 performance. So I consider that to be excellent. But when I look at your device, you've got a lot of storage on that device. You're over the 80% threshold. It's starting to actually bog down the computer. So our recommendation would be X, Y, and Z. When we go from doing that, from being reactive to proactive and helping identify that, it becomes pretty good. And then when we were in situations where executives say, I've had this computer for a year, I want a new one. Sure, you can have a new one. You don't need it, but you can have a new one. But if you do that, this is what we recommend. And you can pass your computer down to someone else because there's no need for it to be replaced. But I understand the desire to have something new and make sure that you're on the cutting edge. And so again, I think those are some of the things that we've done well. It's also some of the things that we're challenged with to have to continue to do on an ongoing basis to be relevant. And one of the things that's interesting is that I mentioned to you that I started in sales and then went into sales and marketing. Well, the fact of the matter is we have a very flat organization from a sales perspective. In my role as founder, president, CEO, I play a key role with a lot of our strategic partners and customers. I would say probably 80 to 85% of our business comes from customer referrals or partnership referrals. And we have significant growth through that model and methodology. As we add resources, and again, now we're managing a business and we say we have $1 to invest, I sit down with my leadership team and I say, we've got $1 to invest. Do we invest that dollar in new technologies to make us better, faster, stronger? If we're going to add a body, do we add that body to sales, marketing, operations, or strategically? Or do we put it in other areas? And the last place that people always say to invest in is, I don't think we need to add another sales body. We've got 30, 40, 50, 100% growth. But we could use it maybe on tools, and we could use it to make ourselves more effective than what we even have been. We operate with probably 35 to 50 full-time employees. We probably have up to 100 contractors at any point in time, but we look and feel like a 100-person organization. And it's because of a lot of the tools that we use. And so when you look at things like IoT, if you look at artificial intelligence, you look at machine learning, there's the ability to drive efficiencies that make you better. And there's the ability to take the team that you've got and get them to move from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, and for them to kind of have a growth path. And that's probably been one of the biggest initiatives that we've had internally is, while we're busy doing what we do, how do we continue to create a growth path for our employees? Rather than hiring a level 2, level 3, let's take the level 1, utilize tools or resources to replace them at level 1 and move them into level 2, level 3. Get them to specialize in certain areas. And through that specialization and through that focus, that's where we've really grown the business.
So let's unpack a little bit the technologies that you guys are using to help manage all of this? Because to me, it sounds very overwhelming, obviously, from the outsider perspective here of, okay, we got a lot of hands-on with the clients. That requires a lot of manpower. We got a limited team. So now we bring in a killer ticketing system. Do you guys use a CRM? My real question here is like, is this proprietary? Are you developing this all in-house,
You know,
or are you leveraging third-party stuff to kind of
we're
build
leveraging
something?
we're leveraging third party and APIs
Okay.
to integrate technologies. Now, there are some things that we've, in our history that we've gone and used developers to build. The challenge with that, while it's good to do, because you have an asset within the company, it's an asset that continues to need to be fed, invested in, and so on. And we found that while you don't necessarily get everything you want out of a third party, again, if you've got those APIs and other things that are in place, it's probably a more efficient use of dollars than building it yourself.
So with the advent now of AI or large language models and these generative tools and things like that, how are you finding your team implementing this type of thing?
That's a great question. And again, it's part of what we're looking at as far as how do we get better, faster, stronger. So when I look at AI, right, and I would look at, early days, I went to my team and I went to a number of people and I said, listen, I think like IoT, we've got to somehow be on the forefront. We've got to be able to disseminate, decipher real from marketing. We also have to see how it can fit in our model. So if artificial intelligence is essentially at a real crude level, a set of eyes that are always on something that we want to be able to monitor and investigate and stay on top of, where would be the areas that we would need to do that? So if I look at IoT, what IoT delivered to us was it used to be in our space that every time there was a problem, you rolled a truck. And rolling a truck costed a ton of money. And so if you could put the tools in place that would allow you to remotely triage, in a perfect world, identify with alerts and other things before they were a recognized problem, so you could proactively fix it, that could increase the efficiency of your team significantly. And we did that, right? Now, we weren't the first people to do that by any means. However, we really adopted that model and methodology and invested in a lot of technologies and partnerships to get there. As we've been looking at AI, we've said, okay, let's take a look at through our gauges and reports. Let's take a look at the percentage of time that's spent in certain areas. And are those areas better done somewhere else? So I'll give you an example. So if I'm using cellular LTE as a backup, carriers might charge me somewhere in the neighborhood of $5, $10, $20 per gigabyte for usage. When Rogers went down and we had a number of sites that were infected or affected, we had a cost over the course of a 4 or 5 day period while that got sorted out of about $30,000. So that's pretty expensive. But it was part of what we had already accounted for and or accrued in anticipation of an event like that happening. And on any given day, we have customers that have small outages and other things. So we've got people that, have tasks throughout the day to go in and take a look at our data usage on cellular. And they take a look at our data consumption and consumption by site, by brand, by customer type. And they do that and look for and identify problems. They look for and identify consumption and they fix those. And that is something that has more than paid for itself. It's paid for itself 10 times over. However, it does take a human to do that and watch that and manually go through and take a look and then identify and triage. However, with IoT and other technologies that are in place, if we could use a RESTful API with artificial intelligence that could do that same sort of monitoring and immediately alert us when thresholds were hit, as opposed to having people manually go and do that, that would solve or save a ton of time. If we had the tools in place that would allow them to reboot a device or do other things that are really manual in nature, but not necessarily advanced or require intuitive thinking. I'm not saying that AI can't do intuitive thinking, but to start with, we'd want it to be very basic. Well, those are the things that we're looking at investing in, right? So how do we take what we do today, a lot of which is manual, automate it through artificial intelligence, use and leverage that so that it's doing the triage and extending it to our team? The other thing that we've looked at that I think is going to be a game changer for us, at least, is that right now I have a tool which is a repository of information. So every site that we have, when we did the installation, we have pictures of that site, of every technology. We've got a list of all the devices and the model numbers and the IMEI numbers, everything that's connected. In the ticketing system, we can go and take a look at every specific ticket that comes in, how we resolved it. However, there's a lot of times that we're trying to find a problem. So when my guys came to me with the ticketing system, they said, do you know how much time technicians spend looking for information? 65% of their time. And I said, okay, great. Then let's invest in this tool, which we did. Now, we didn't get that 65% return on efficiency right away, but you could see immediately the benefit of that, because I could take someone that is maybe out of a level 1 to level 10, I could take a level 6 guy and make him a level 7, 7.5 by access to the right information. Without having to go to an individual that had it, they had access to the information, they could do a lot of stuff. So number one, I made my top guy more effective because he wasn't getting calls that could be handled somewhere else. And I made the middle guys more effective because those middle guys were able to access information. And by accessing it and learning it, they became smarter faster. However, there's still inefficiencies in that. So I said, well, what if I could so I reach out to the market, to the players, people that had reached out to us. And I said, I'd like to create a tech assist model. What if I could take from all of our partners every manual that they have, every installation guide, every troubleshooting guide, all the information on the technology, and I could insert that into an AI engine? What if I could then take everything that they had for bugs that were identified, bugs that were fixed, or other things that we're working on? And what if I could have them monitor user groups, chat groups, and other things where people were asking about problems and then user groups were helping them resolve that? And let's say I created something that became something called Tech Assist. And so now instead of my level 1, level 2, level 3 guys either going up chain, so level 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to experts, what about if I could get anybody to go to Tech Assist and say, hey, Tech Assist, these 3 problems have been occurring on this site. Where do you suggest that I look? And it goes, scans the entire network, all the volume, and says, these are the 3 areas that I'd focus on. Well, now I've gone from solving problems that might have taken a week or 10 days. Now, our average response time is within minutes today. Our average resolution time is within hours. If we do have something that's going to take longer to resolve, we usually have a backup plan and strategy, so it helps to mitigate that as far as the end user experience goes. But we do have some problems where we're working with third parties or developers with the manufacturers to solve a problem. But if we could identify that quicker, when we called the manufacturer for their third level support, we'd say, oh, by the way, can you check here, here, or here? Because these are the things that have been identified. Well, now all of a sudden, we condense and reduce the time for problem solving from here to here. And so now we become even more relevant to our customers. Our challenge will be what it was when we moved to IoT. How do we best communicate that to our customers so that they know and understand that all of the things that we've done, all of the investments that we've made is the reason why their end user experience is what it is. But now we can start to leverage, as we've already done, some of those findings and partner with other people for them to maybe do the same type of thing in their organization. And so a lot of our customers, which are our partners, they'll say to me, Kev, tell me a little bit about what you did here. Tell me a little bit about how you use and leverage technology. I've got guys that are business consultants. They'll say, hey, would you mind coming in talking to my group of customers about digital transformation and what that looks like and how you've used it. And I used to struggle with it because I would think of it more from a marketing perspective as opposed to our own user experience about how we utilize technology. And even when somebody says to me, "Oh, are you guys in the IoT space?" My first thought would be, well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, we're using sensors and devices and other things. But then when I look at what we're actually doing and how we've done it and how we manage a network and the different technologies, we're heavily into IoT, and we have been for many years.
So with the technologies that you're implementing, it seems a lot of it is internal tools that are allowing you to better serve your customers. Are you also exploring customer-facing technologies that the customers would be interacting or interfacing with?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I'll give you kind of an experience of mine and then what that would look like. So we all know that if you go to a place that makes you feel good, a restaurant or a bar or whatever, you're going to go back there, right? Because you can buy the drink anywhere, you can buy a sandwich anywhere, but if they make you feel good, that goes a long way. So there's a Starbucks that I go to, there's a Tim Hortons that I go to, and every morning I have an Americano and a glass of water or a bottle of water. Well, they come to recognize me, right? Yeah. And when I come up, they'll say, "Hey, Kev, how you doing?" "Great." And I usually say, "Excellent." And they say, "Are you going to have an Americano and a bottle of water today or a glass of water?" "Absolutely." "Okay, great. Come on up." And then as time goes on, the interaction is it's a very engaged social interaction. And it's part of my get going part of my day, right? Now, same thing happens when I go to Tim Hortons, right? I go to Tim Hortons and I order whatever. In this case, I'm ordering Americano, and I don't ask for a bottle of water. And they say, "Oh, aren't you going to have a bottle of water today?" And I'm like, "Hey, that's pretty cool. It makes me feel good." But obviously, as technology changes, there's things that can be implemented that help out. And one example of that is there's a large pizza chain that we deal with, and they've got a device that when you call in, if you call in by the phone, if you're obviously going in via the web, your profile is there, everything's active. It shows you your order history. If you call in, you're just one of 1,000 people. But they've got a device that actually, when you call in, it throws the number up onto the point of sale. It pulls up your profile. And then the guy says, "Hey, Kev, are you going to order the same thing you did last time? You ordered A, B, and C." You say, "No, I'm going to do something different today." You go, "Okay." But there's really a combination of technology, which is crude, with an individual. But what if you could actually change that user experience and utilize maybe artificial intelligence? And artificial intelligence could take it to the next level. You probably wouldn't know as artificial intelligence, but they would say, "Hey, you can have the same thing." "No, I'm going to have this." And you go, "Okay, well, hey, good news. There's a coupon that you can have. It's going to reduce your overall cost by $5. You want me to? I'll just put that in place." Great, right? So a lot of the things that people have done can continue to be done. And I look at technology to say, how do you enhance or expand upon what you're already doing? Maybe you're not going to change the world overnight, but if you could take that technology and make it a little bit better, faster, stronger, that'd be great. Another thing is a lot of the tools that people use in the telecom side were really based on traditional analog lines or digital lines, which were PRI. All of the telcos are getting out of that and pushing everybody to go with SIP or IP trunking, IP business lines. We've had that structure in place inside of our data center where we have session border controllers and we have multiple SIP paths in Canada, US, globally. And we have a bank of PRIs with digital lines and trunking with all kinds of failover. So again, we have no single point of failure within our stream. But now everybody's moving to SIP or IP on the carrier side. A lot of things that people used analog lines for, like elevator phones, security alarm, could be devices like I just mentioned. Those things are now gone away. So how do you now take advantage of that, or how do you replicate that in a new world, new environment? And again, that's where you're going to have to use new technologies. So we're looking at real world problems that are brought to us from our customers and utilizing and leveraging new technology to implement that on behalf of them. We utilize technologies ourselves, again, to make us better, faster, stronger, but also improve the communication stream and value that we show. And we look at new technologies like AI to say, is there other stuff that we can be doing? Because we're not experts in AI outside of our field, we're partnering with a couple of companies and trying to create, for lack of a better term, almost an introduction and or methodology to bring people into our customers, but to say, we've used these guys. Here's how it worked for us. This is what the experience was like. Here's how to minimize your cost exposure. And here's how to improve the end user experience. And so today we're not doing it anything other than a referral partnership. But most of the things that we're into today started that way. We used it ourselves, we referred other people, and then we got on board and leveraged that to further enhance what we were doing.
Kevin, you've done some incredible work, and I'm in awe hearing all of the vast experience and knowledge that you're sharing, and you've been very generous with your time. So I just want to express to you that on behalf of everybody who may watch this, we're very grateful for all of that. In closing, Kevin, if you could offer somebody a piece of advice who is also in a similar position to you, who's exploring these kinds of technologies, what would that piece of advice be?
So obviously, if you're in a business, if you're an entrepreneur, you already fundamentally understand, the strengths and weaknesses of your organization. If I sit down with my leadership team, as much as we've done this much, there's this much more that we have to do, right? Mm-hmm. So empowering your team to bring you problems, empowering your team to bring you solutions to those problems, and to be humble enough to understand where your weaknesses and strengths are, to bring in people that have expertise, make that investment. You're not going to win, and you're not going to score on every shot. However, if you approach it with that mindset, the reality is you're going to find new opportunities to continue to expand the business. When I started the business, I remember someone said to me, most business fail in the first 5 years. And that's because you're making investments and you're making a ton of mistakes, right? Those first 5 years are also the foundation of everything you do, right? The mistakes that you make, those learnings. It's not that you're not going to make them again, but hopefully you don't. And then the next thing is, the next real tipping point for the organization is after 10 years. You've got credibility. Hopefully you've got stability. You've got a methodology for success. And if that methodology for success includes listening, partnering, and trying to execute, most people that I see that are successful in business today in our realm have adopted, a combination of those, I'm going to say, traits.
Very wise. Kevin, if somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further or to work with you, how would one go about doing that?
I'm available through my email, through LinkedIn, via phone. I mentioned that, a significant part of our business comes from leads and referrals, and it comes from my network. It's funny, we work in the retail and hospitality space for large chains. Everybody that comes in and takes on a role as a new VP of IT, the first thing they think is, I think I can do it better than you. And I'd be like, okay, well, let's wait for the first 90 days. And at the end of 90 days, we'll do an assessment. At the end of 90 days, it's usually, I didn't realize how much you did. At the end of 6 months, we became an integral part of their strategy. As every one of those left, and every one of them to the man, when they went to a new company, they brought us in. So I understand that, networking and partnering with people, I don't look at it from what am I going to get out of it? I look at it from, if there's some way that it can help you today, somewhere down the road, I'll reach out, ask for a favor, a referral, a reference, and hopefully you'll be there for me. But if not, if I can add some value to you and what you're doing, I'm happy to do it. So email me, call me, reach out to me via LinkedIn. If I can help, I'm happy to do so. If I don't have the answer, but I have people in my network, I'm happy to extend those introductions as well.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for being so generous with your time today, Kevin. We all appreciate the wisdom and insights that you shared with us. That's it for this episode. If you want to get in touch with me or my team for any reason, it's nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode, and I will see you in the next one.